So yes, we there is a submission then for this for next week, and that should be ideally have your footage together. If you're struggling to shoot footage or finding footage, you can source footage, you can use stock footage. Um, the mark isn't really based on how you shoot the footage, but how you utilize it and how you combine things together. That's really what the focus of this is. How you use it, how you track it, if it needs tracking, how you put elements in it. That's what we're looking at. And we just that video we just watched, the guy was talking about how rigs weren't ready and stuff like that. So even now, if you have stuff in the rigs aren't working, I don't mind if you source elements for this. We really um, the skill we're assessing now is kind of like um, merging things together, putting stuff in motion in the shots, overall composition and edit and compositing and all that stuff. So don't let if things aren't ready from previous terms, don't let that hold you back. Just gotta go on with what you need to. But here, I'm just gonna prefetch this quick. Here I have a shot. You'll probably be at this point with your shots now. So here's a shot that I tracked. If you look at the top here, so it's tracked. It's not great. It needs some work. I think the lens is quite off. I'm getting quite a bit of warping there, but it's close. I probably need a little bit of work on this. But what you would do next is now I've got this. Yeah, got this tracked. I want to now start with animating the shot. So I have a rig here. Let's just see where it is. Okay. Open. Should be here somewhere. There. Okay. So here I have a model that I can use for that shot, and he's rigged. He actually has a bit of animation on him, I think. Yeah, he kind of it's like kind of his warping animation, but that's on the dry on action there. I'm just going to remove that. He is rigged. He is in place. Let's check if everything there. Okay, so here's the character. Just put him there. Why can't I see his root? Okay, I just want to check if I have his UI in here. I don't. Okay, it should be fine. Okay, anyway, he's in the scene. You see he's in a collection. I can just call that collection bot. And in the other scene, I'm just going to go in here and then I've now tracked it. I'm going to go to a layout scene here, video, general layout. I did show during when I was tracking, I did show that I make low res versions of the background. So if I look through my camera, here's the back. I make video that's called low, clouds low, so that I get quicker playback. That's not the one I'm going to use for final render or anything like that. It's just that things play in my viewport a lot better. If you're not sure about tracking, you can go to on the last 2 weeks on canvas. Let's go to home. You see here, okay, chroma keying and rotoscoping. I've got that class recording where I went through keying the footage and then taking it into Blender, so that you can find there, and using the rotoscope brushes and that kind of stuff. And then here on week 4 on tracking, here's 2 tutorials: one for camera tracking and one for object tracking. If you need to track a face or an arm or something like that, and attach something to that. So I've got 2 tutorials there if you have any issues with that. Okay, now to bring that character in, I'm just going to go File, Append, and find my character. It should be here. What? Go into that file, find the collections. That's not collection. Collection? Yeah, and there's the collection. And okay, it was named collect. I didn't save the one where I renamed it now. But here's my model now. Okay, it brings in all the widgets, which is annoying. You should be able to find them by name if you struggle with that. I also don't need that light, I guess, but okay, so delete those widgets. And then he has his root controller there. I'm going to put him into position with the root controller. I kind of want him here. I'm going to scale him down to the right size. He's probably more that size. Okay. And and there, then he is in place. I'm going to delete that guy, and I'm just going to make this, actually I'll make a new one for that, make a new, in object mode, okay, make a new plane, and I'm just going to set this plane to, if I'm in cycles, I can set this plane to shadow catcher. So on the properties, the vertex properties of this plane, I'm just going to go to viewport, no, not viewport, display, visibility, make that shadow catcher. So if I do render, I can get his shadows on the ground. His shaders are missing. And for now, you, oops, okay. For now, you you don't, we're not gonna, eventually you'll render the robot out, or your character or whatever you have out on his own, without the background. But for now, because of this is still just post viz, so we're now looking at visualization still, but it's not final renders. You can go to your render options and just make sure that film transparent is on, and if I then render in the viewport, you will still see your background. I don't, for next week's handling, I don't need renders. You can literally go to a shaded mode and capture it out, like that. But if you do want to, if you are making test renders or anything at this point, then yeah, just put in the film to transparent and the ground plane to shadow catcher. There is this option if you go into shaded mode here, so not rendered but just shaded. Then you can go into the lighting and just switch on scene lights and scene world, and that should give you an idea of what the world will light like. But we're not doing lighting yet. I don't know why it's not. It's still loading shaders and stuff. Okay, but for now, OpenGL is fine. Okay, and then you want to animate this. So week 3, and sorry, I don't know if you asked that question before I said, but yeah, they are on Canvas. Let me just check if they are published. Units. Yeah, they are published, so you should have access to them. Okay, if they're not there, just let me know. But camera tracking, that one. So I'm just checking if they're working. Okay, they are working. It's that one. Yeah, and here's where I track that shot I'm busy with now. It's weird. Can anybody else? Can everybody else see it, or is it just Tatu? Units. Okay, so maybe you just need to refresh everything or just restart your system. If they're still not popping up, yeah, that one. Oh wait, that one isn't there. Okay, maybe it was that. Check. Just refresh your page and check now. You should be able to see them. Okay, now to animate a shot. If you've had animation in second or third year with me before, it's the same process. I'm going to show you a shot that I'm busy with now, but I will go in and I'll get the key post. So let's say this thing gets dropped from a, or this is something, he's just, what can he do? Okay, obviously you'll have reference and stuff, but let's just say he just kind of does a roar like that, the gorilla we just saw or something. So I'll just get him into a nice pose for the beginning. So obviously he's got some animation on him. Okay, that's an action. So I'm just going to go into dope sheet. That's not dope sheet, sorry. Let's do that. Okay. Dope sheet, and I'm going to go into action editor and just remove that action because that's something that's on the model, saved on the model already. Okay, so let's just give him a bit of a pose. I'm going to look through the camera. This lens is really not working well. I still need to track this a little bit. Let me just check if I can. What is this lens? 116. If I change it now, it's going to break the whole track. So it's not an easy track, this one, because of the clouds and stuff. So it still needs a bit of work. Okay, but anyway, so I'm just going to go into a bit of a pose here. Let's say, okay, obviously your rigs will function quite a bit different. This one is just a rotation. I've got an up and down here. I should have. Oh, there it is. Okay, so that's my upper body. So I'm just going to give him a bit of a nicer weight distribution in the beginning. So I'm not starting with a completely neutral pose. Okay, let's make sure I'm on local for those. Okay, so Z should give me that, yeah. Yeah, he's also got two different controllers for that. I have animated this guy before, but it was quite a while ago, and so I can't remember all the controllers. Okay, let's just say I've got a pose in the beginning. Okay, and I just pose him on whole character. Then I'll pose the next pose a little bit further on, so he's going to anticipate a bit. So I'm going to push him down. Maybe before he anticipates, maybe gives a little bit of a step, so he leans in this way. This foot lifts up. Okay. Okay, I'm going through this real quick. So obviously, you want to spend some time on poses and things. I'll show you another example in a minute where I've spent a bit more time. Where anyway, he probably pushes that there, and then puts his weight down. He kind of brings his head back. Where is that head control? It's that one. Okay, cool. Push his head back. The weight would have moved a bit forward. Okay, so I'm literally going, pose to pose at this point. I'm getting some, and I'm going to select all those keys in the dope sheet and go into constant. This process of going into constant and putting the poses in, it really helps, getting rid of all the unwanted information that you don't want at this point, and it makes animation a lot easier to do. But let's say then he kind of anticipates. So that pushes down. I think that will probably rotate a little bit that way. Just push that down a little bit too. Okay, I have a big anticipation there. Whole character. Those little things that pop, that's because of constraints that just catch up later. When I capture this out, it'll be fine. Okay, and then he maybe gives some kind of a roar if he's like some mechanical dinosaur. Some of you have that in your in your fills, so maybe that picks up a little bit. Okay, and we'll give that a bit of a thing. Post those things over. Okay, I'm just doing it really roughly. But then, okay, so there he roars. I'm going to leave that for a while, and then he goes back into a normal pose. Okay, let's go back there. Okay, and then I will probably create another pose where he just eases up again. Okay. Let's switch off this. So then, when I've got a bunch of poses in, then I'm happy with kind of the blocking. Then I'll go in and create some. And I think a lot of your shots would be this kind of thing, locomotion stuff, but it can be quite simple. Try and focus on making the shots look nice. You're not trying to tell a whole story, so you can make sure that the animation you do looks cool, but it doesn't have to be like heavy intricate. Anyway, so at this point I will go into linear, not linear, Bezier, and I'll start polishing it. So there it moves a bit, and that roar I probably have to hold for a while, so I'm going to take that pose and copy and paste it so he holds it, and I'll go in and push that a little bit further. So I kind of push that in, so it becomes a moving hold. So if you it's not completely static, so it kind of does that. And then here he goes down, and that I'm going to hold for a little bit so that I can actually do a anticipation on him, so that or overlap. So when he comes down, it comes down, because because it is quite heavy, so I'll probably push that down a little bit. Okay, so it kind of goes down. Okay, that last pose doesn't really work, so let's do that. Okay, it goes down and back into a neutral pose. So, okay, I'm very much rushing through this just to give an example. As he puts his foot down there, that weight would be distributed more this, like that. Okay. And then from here, I just want to kind of keep on polishing it until I get the right pose. But then you can hide your controllers, make your... Okay, you can't actually hide that and still see your background image because the camera gets in, so I'll just hide that kind of stuff for now. And then capture that out for your work in progress submission. So with a bit of animation polished in there. It for next week still work in progress animation. So it doesn't have to be. You can still be on constant mode, but then you just want to go into view, viewport render animation, so you can submit this as a video. Okay, so but I want to show you a little bit more in a more detailed way how to approach this animation, kind of like fight or flight or creature animation or that kind of stuff. So I'm going to open a shot here that I animated a while ago. I got this rig from a course that I did or wanted to do ages ago, but I just used that because that's one of the better quadruped rigs that I have. There's somewhere in here where do I have them? Animation. Okay, here. So I've got four files there. So 1, 2, 3. So let's open one. So this is where I would start. I have a camera in here, but I tweaked the camera a little bit later. Obviously, your cameras will be locked off to a degree. Well, your cameras will be locked off for most shots because of VFX. But think about how your character, the VFX thing you're putting in, the 3D thing you're putting in, or the stop motion guys, you have more control over your frames and things at this point because you're animating while you're using the camera. Don't try and set up shots like this. Okay, so if we look at this shot I did, that's maybe not the greatest. Okay, so maybe if let's just put all these on. Oh, I didn't want those. Okay. Maybe it would have been better if I look at my camera if the robot was posed more in this kind of direction and I can see the face a little bit more. So think about that. So if I had a shot like this and he's running through frame, having my camera here isn't very interesting. It's not going to make a very dynamic shot, but having it here where I do have it at this point, he gets closer to the camera, he's at a bit of an angle, it's more dynamic. Think about that. You don't when posing shots, I know you think about what should happen in the shot and you kind of put your character there and have him do his stuff, but think about the camera as a secondary element of your animation. Having things going, using the depth of frame, using the Z angle and all of that is very important. So going through a lot of your animatics, just having that Z depth work for you, kind of having things moving to and from camera or out of frame and into frame and that kind of stuff. Keep that in mind because it's going to add so much to your shots. And if you're not sure, we can look at your shots and talk about it. How things can be placed in shots so they're more appealing and you can read more. So in this case, when I push the camera like that, it makes an okay silhouette, and I can see what's going on, but it's not very interesting. Where if I move the camera, at this point now I can see both his eyes towards the end, which is nice. I can also see a bit of the front of his face. He just feels more appealing and things. I haven't animated the tail at this point yet, but the tail gives me a nicer silhouette, kind of gives me a bit of depth and a frame behind him and things. So just putting the camera there made a big difference. Now in your case, the camera's locked off. You have to think of where to put the character. It's not a shake. It's a I do animate the camera slightly. It's not quite shaking, unless you're talking about this shot. That could just be a fault in the track. This one is just when I scrubbed through it, probably looked like a shake. Okay, so this is my shot one of my first pass of animation. Let's switch on the controllers and select it. So you can see I've got all these poses. So frame one, I've got him kind of like in a bit of a neutral pose. One thing with characters and creatures that you want to think about is it's the same with animation, but with creature animation, it's even more important. Symmetry, you really want to break that. So here I kind of have him a bit symmetrical. I've kind of put him off of center a little bit, but as soon as I kind of go into my poses, you can see how I'm starting to break symmetry, in some of these poses. And when it gets into the air, there I'm definitely starting to break symmetry. And as he lands, he doesn't land with the 2 feet like next to each other. They're kind of overlapping a little bit. And I also, you'll see when I start polishing this, I also don't have them like there. I don't have them landing at the same time. The 2 feet, one lands first, then the other. So that kind of texture, that kind of overlap, and just breaking the symmetry adds a lot of life and a lot of believability to it. It's like creatures definitely move like that quite a lot more than if you look at reference and things. So what I would do, I'd start with the key poses. So here I have just the start. The next pose is an anticipation, and he kind of lifts his leg up a little bit. I did that to start breaking symmetry there. And he pushes that leg back so he can get his weight in. I actually don't think this pose is quite, that should probably go down quite a bit. One thing with quadrupeds is you want to really focus on that and that area. You want these two, they are kind of connected, so you want that to always kind of flow. So I go into the next one, and I get a flow there, and then so on. There's always, and as you pose these two, and you always kind of keep them in relation to each other, you might have a lot of weird stuff happening here, especially in the dragon animation. That's gonna happen. Like you might have some bad tail work or something. You want to focus on those two areas first and get them flowing, and then you can make sure that everything else is kind of coming with, kind of joining up with that. So so the next one is when he jumps. He's a bouncy ball. I can push these poses. I think probably later on I started making these poses a little bit better, but he's still touching, kind of like a bouncy ball, and he's reaching towards where he's going. Next one, he's up in the air. So again, I kind of really try and get those two in the right direction, and I start breaking symmetry with those things. And at this point, he's already looking at where he's going to go. So then I have him landing. So he's touching. I've already started timing it at this point. So like a bouncy ball, he will, on the very next frame, he will touch down, kind of squash. So that's my stretch, and that's my squash. Then he kind of just settles in, and I have him just ending with a bit of detail in the end there. So I've got all of these poses. They're all on constant, so nothing is splitting yet. I'm not animating the tail except for the root, so I'm animating that controller. I'm getting a bit of a weird bend on that, but that's something I will polish in the next poses. Okay, so there I have all my basic key poses in. Then the next one, let's go to 102. Here I have, now I've started adding more. I would probably have polished those poses, like things I didn't really like about the poses yet. So here you can see I'm anticipating a little bit more. Let me actually select my keys so I can see what I did. And also, I traced the motion so I can kind of tweak the motion paths and arcs and stuff. So here, okay, I anticipate. So I've got those two poses. Here I have two poses now. So I want the squash and the stretch right next to each other. So this would be me already timing it out. So now I'm really, I sped up certain things. It feels a little bit poppy at this point. I'm still on constant. But yeah, so there's my stretch. So there he is going. That's a breakdown between his highest position and lowest position. I would have put that in to try and get his tail and his legs and things just kind of to start going into the right direction. So I added a breakdown there. And then here's another breakdown, same thing. I'm trying to get his legs and things to start. So is this on my quick? Yeah, so I have this set to my quick paths, so update paths. You will also find it here, motion paths. So if I hit Q and update, it will just, okay, it will update the one that there is. If I select something and I go calculate, it will calculate whatever selected for my path. So I probably started adding in these breakdowns. I did this earlier in the week, or and I kind of did it in little sessions here and there, and I kind of, so I can't remember exactly what I did when, but I probably started putting these breakdowns in to get an arc on his legs, so they start getting to the right position at the right time. Let's switch off motion paths for a second. Um, motion paths, okay. So yeah, then he gets, there's my stretch pose again, and he lands, and then a little bit of an overshoot there, and then he kind of settles in. So here I now added all the breakdowns that I kind of want. And then on the next shot, or next iteration of this, I think here I started going into spline. Yes, okay, I started splining stuff out. I posed the tail a little bit more. Let's see. Okay, so let's see what I have. So here you can see the arcs are a little bit smoother already. Because there's so little frames in between these things, getting a nice, like kind of curvy arc here is, you're going to struggle getting that. But you can see I'm getting a bit closer there from polishing, starting to polishing up certain things. Here I'm using the actual ground plane and I was going to use. Earlier I didn't, because I wanted to see what where his feet would be touching and stuff if I have this kind of view. But at this point, I'm not even looking. I'm mainly focusing on through the camera and stuff. Okay, so I exaggerated some poses, so that one looks like it's exaggerated a bit, and I'm moving some of the poses, I'm holding poses there. Um, okay, and looks like I didn't add any more breakdowns, but this is literally me going into spline mode. I also added a blink on his face, and I would have started doing some graph stuff. So if I go into the graph editor, ooh, this is linear. For some reason I was working on linear at this point. Let's see if I go into this here. Maybe that was just a mistake. But what I would have done at this point is, so this controller, the body, so that is up and down. I would have spaced this quite a bit. So location Z, definitely. I would want them to, you see I've kind of would have scaled those handles down, scaled that one up a little bit so he's got more hang time. Um, I probably would have done that, but let's go to the last frame. I didn't completely finish this yet, but I tried to get through the whole process as much as possible. So let's look at that body controller again. This one. So at this point, let's look at Z. Yeah, okay, I definitely started working on these here. Yeah, that one you can see I spaced it out quite a lot. And I probably would end up deleting some of these things if need be, so I can get smoother arc in there. But that stuff I would leave for very late. But you can see now already how smoother those tracked arcs are. So I started tracking the legs in here so I can see if they're making nice arcs. The body. Okay, I kind of broke my animation now by removing some of those keys. So let's open that again. Okay, so switch that on. Is this 4 here? Okay, so here I'm starting to get smoother motion on him, better arcs, a little bit better timing. I kept him quite snappy. I want to quite. He's a squirrel, so I kind of wanted to keep him. I was watching squirrels we have a farm in Magaliesberg. I was watching squirrels like 2 weeks ago, and the way they move and stuff. It was quite cool. But yeah, so at this point I'll just go through every every pose and make sure it's now reading well. So you can see here I'm doing a bit of a moving hold. Let's select the rig. Dope sheet. So from there to there, it's a very similar pose, but I'm moving it a little bit, kind of giving him a bit more anticipation, moving the ears a bit, pulling the tail in, but that's a moving hold. So it's almost the exact same pose, it just there's a little bit of life in, and then he will pop over one frame into that. Here I'm getting a little bit of knee pops and stuff, but I don't mind that because you're not really seeing it. I just don't like it here, actually, somewhere here. I think that one, it's probably a little bit straight still. So maybe I just want to get rid of that pop just a bit. So I'll key that so that's definitely better. Okay. And here his spine seems to break a little bit. So like I said, you want that section and those sections to kind of feel connected. And this pose, it doesn't feel too great. So I should probably just tweak that a little bit. Let's see. I think that is better. Okay. And it does take time. So like now if you're used to kind of doing bipeds and things, and now you're doing quadrupeds for your VFX thing, it takes longer. Okay, so because you now literally have two sets of legs you have to worry about, two sets of down poses. The guys who are on the Yeti film, you kind of already doing a bit of a quadruped there, and you'll understand how it takes a bit longer. You have to now think about which arm his weight is on as well, as he's moving. But yeah, so that's the basic idea of kind of fight or flight or locomotion animation. And it's the same process, but I am thinking about it a little bit differently, a little bit more, it's more creature, less performance, and more locomotion, action, fight or flight kind of thing than performance. And I'm really focusing on the spine and how it connects. Well, the spine in any character is really important, but that kind of arc here drives so much of this kind of animation that's really something that I focus on before I worry too much about polishing everything else. Yes, adding the tail like I did here and adding the ears and the blink, it adds believability to animation, it adds texture, but it's such a quick thing I can do at the end and make my shot look better. But where if I don't have the spine distribution and the squash and stretch poses and those things right, then the whole thing's going to look wrong no matter how I polish it. Yeah, so that's the basic idea. Is there any questions about this?